A classical and world music guitarist from Dorchester is taking his work to a higher level with his first solo recital in New York, and before that, with a performance here in the city. He's also on the music faculty at UMass Boston. To tell us about his work is Aaron Larget-Caplan. Thank you very much for being with us, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, talk about the mix of music that you're working on right now. I know you've focused on other things, but this is different worlds here. You have Japanese music, some Bach thrown in.
Yes. Well, the program itself celebrates a recent recording of mine, The Legend of Hagoromo, and everything on that CD has a tie to Japan. Either the composers are Japanese, or they're Americans writing in an Eastern aesthetic, or they are inspired by Japanese myth. Then with this concert, I added in a little bit of Bach, because he's Bach. And then John Cage was very much influenced by Eastern philosophy and introduced to Japan in the 1940s, early 40s. And so I took a piece of his and arranged that. And so that's on the program as well. And then Mussorgsky, who's Russian. But the Japanese aspect is the wonderful Japanese guitarist Yamashita arranged the whole piece for guitar solo, which is insane. And so I'll be playing a couple pieces of that as well. So it's a wide-ranging concert of contemporary as well as traditional legends.
Well, talk about the Hagoromo, because this is a sort of a new piece. A lot of people are not familiar with it. And I guess this is Japanese tradition, but also some Western influences.
Yes. Well, Keigo Fuji is a composer based in Kyoto. And he studied in Spain and wrote this amazing piece, about 20 minutes, for David Russell, a famous classical guitarist. And it's called The Legend of Hagoromo. It's based on a Japanese legend, myth that goes back to the 13th century. And he used this beautiful melody to describe the story. So I am doing things on the guitar that rarely gets done. I'm brushing, scratching, bending the strings. I don't bite. But everything else you can think of, I'm doing to describe this story. But he also loved rock music. He loved Western music. So he's the scale is Japanese, but there's elements that are very Spanish. There are elements that are very rock. I've played it for people, and they hear Celtic step dancing. So it's a wide-ranging, amazing tour de force, and it's awesome. And
And we're going to cue up a little excerpt from that. Aaron, what about your own absorption of all these different influences? Because, I mean, do you tune in by ear to this, I mean, even beyond guitar, to maybe even traditional instruments in Japan to learn something from that?
Yeah, I think one has to look deeper into the culture. The dots on the page in classical music, where you read music, is a very kind of hazy map. And there's so many things that can't be notated and in Western tradition. And so the Japanese traditional music is oral tradition, or they have a completely different idea of how to notate the music. And so I've listened to traditional Japanese music quite a bit. I've played with shakuhachi. I love the poetry. I love the literature, the food, of course. And I think all of that is then brought together on the guitar. And the guitar can be an amazing impersonator. And so I can bend pitches, I can change the color to get a very metallic sounding, as well as a very sweet sounding sound. And so as a musician, I think part of what my duty is to both be respectful and kind of bring the two worlds together. I'm not a traditional koto player, but there are times where the composer writes, scratch the string like a koto. And so if it is done to express something, to further along an idea, I have no problem doing it and looking forward to it.
Well, your program also includes a piece by Bach, a piece I first heard with Glenn Gould playing on piano, and it's different on guitar.
Yes, well, one of the projects I've been doing is arranging Bach, and pieces that aren't typically arranged. Bach didn't write for the guitar. He didn't even really write for the lute. He knew the lute. He had friends who played the lute, but he always wrote on a keyboard, a Lautenwerk, which was supposed to sound like a lute.
Kind of a string instrument. With
Yes,
right.
but it was with keys, and so I took some of his studies that he wrote for his son, little preludes, little fugues, and some of them are always on the guitar, but I took a couple that aren't always there, and I arranged them for guitar, and what were considered like easy keyboard pieces. Anyone who's played piano and had a teacher and play this piece, they know these pieces. On the guitar, they're not easy little studies, but they're beautiful, and they allow, again, the impersonation. I can sound like a harpsichord. I can do things that can't be done on a harpsichord or a piano. I have vibrato, I have different colors, and so I have to give a little. Sometimes I have to take away a note or change a register, but it also allows me to create something new, which is really exciting in the 21st century, to be taking music from the 18th century and saying, here's a new view of that.
We should mention, as far as new views here, you've got these events coming up in New York City, but also before that in Boston, you're playing at the Arlington Street Church.
Yes. Oh, what a beautiful church.
You've checked it out, so what's it like in there?
Well, the chapel is where the concert will be. The church is gigantic, and I said, not yet. But the chapel holds just under 100 people, and it's like the inside of a guitar. I walked in there, and I was just snapped my fingers a little bit. I said, ooh, this is nice. And then I pulled out my guitar, and my wife looked at me, and she said, oh. And I'm like, yeah, this is, I feel like a painter with just every color available to me. And so I think it'll be a very special performance in that space.
So we should mention the Arlington Street Church event's going to be exactly when?
It's this Saturday, December 3rd at 8 p.m. and doors open about 7:30, and it'll be a full-length recital. It should be a lot of fun. Tickets are available online or at the door, and the entrance is on Boylston Street. It's not the main church entrance, it's the side entrance, and right off the tee.
And in the meantime, people can also follow you on Facebook. You've got some things up there as well.
Facebook, there's events for this, as well as on Twitter, Google. I'm kind of all over social media. So if you search my name, which is hard to spell, but once you get it, Boston Guitar, you'll find me.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Aaron Larget-Caplan will have more news in just a moment.